We here? Are we up? Are we up? Check, check. Are we? Hello, hello. There we are. Yeah. Okay. And are we on camera? Are we on camera? Do we know if we're on camera here? Yes, we are. Good morning, everybody online. And good morning here in 1111. Welcome to 1111 downtown. We are so glad that you're with us. If you're visiting with us, especially, we're glad you're here. I see some visitors, and I see some faces I haven't seen in a very long time. That's great to see, too. And I'm guessing a lot of you are watching online as well. I'm so glad to have you there with us. Listen, if you're visiting, make sure you make a note of that and let us know that you were here. And then on your way out, there will be a tumbler for you, an 1111 tumbler. Oh, I need to show you that. I've said this before, this is an awesome tumbler. I don't know what chemicals they use in aluminum, but these things stay cold for 15, 20 hours. Ice and everything stays in there. You want to grab one of these. And then if you are not a visitor, but one of our regulars, we now have a full stock back there. Feel free to go buy some for last-minute stocking stuffers. And Christmas gifts, $15. Help us support them. Support us. We're paying back on these. So if you're visiting, we want you to have one of these. We want you to have one of the band CDs as well. So let Marty in the back know on your way out. Also, everybody else, make sure you register your attendance. Listen, while we're singing our opening song in just a little bit, bring your offerings forward if you have those, and your cards forward during that time, and that's when we usually do that, so while we're singing. I can't think of anything else except that we're excited to have you here. This is our last Sunday of the year, so we use this as our pre-Christmas Eve, pre-winter solstice, which is coming just around the corner. Full moon tonight, last night. How many of you saw the full moon last night? It was amazing. Yeah, they call it the cold moon, and it's up all night long. It'll be up again tonight, so hopefully you get to see that. All right, we got Hannah Kirby with us. We got Doxy Sultanoff with us, too. And then who's our guest on the band? On the bass?
Ruben Salazar.
Ruben Salazar joining us. So, all right, let's begin. So glad to see you all here. Let's begin our worship with a little blues.
The jingle bells are jingling, the streets are white with snow, the happy crowds are mingling, but there's no one that I know. I'm sure that you'll forgive me if I don't enthuse. I guess I've got the Christmas blues. I've done my window shopping. There's not a store I missed. But what's the use in shopping when there's no one on your list? You'll know the way I'm feeling when you love and you lose. I guess I've got the Christmas
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, those of you at home. It's time now to welcome each other, whether we're blue or not. It's time. The welcome candle has been lit, so join me. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again.
Thank you, Charm. Hey, group, let's stand and sing together. We're going to sing Joy to the World Blues now. Words on your screen. Elena's leading this one. Let's get it, y'all. Verse 2. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Yeah. And all his songs in voice, while fields and blood, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. Rock out. Verse 3, here we go. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations flow. The glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and of his wonders of his love. Get down, y'all. Take a moment, would you please, and offer one another a sign of peace and wish them Merry Christmas.
I do hate to interrupt a visiting, but whenever you find a moment, you just grab a seat, and we're going to move into our Kairos time with a special song from Elizabeth Wills, E-Dub. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth and the band, for getting us into that place of Kairos. So I invite you now, at home, here in the room, to take a moment to press the emotional pause button in your life. This is a busy season. This is a time when our lives get so full of things to do and places to be and people to see that we forget to take care of our own self and our spirit. So right now, I invite you, get comfortable. Stop for a moment. Put all of that other stuff out of your brain. Breathe deeply and put yourself fully into the present, where all those other thoughts just float away. All those other things about time and responsibility just wait for a little bit. And let's take a few moments to just be together. Experience the present of the presence. So I invite you, breathe deeply. Allow yourself to experience the peace of now. Fill your lungs with refreshing breath and let it go. In moments like this, we can experience that fall on your knees sense of awe. And you can come back to this moment in time, any place that you're willing to step back, breathe deep, and just be.
So I'm going to get started here with something. I'm going to have you all join in with me here. You guys online, you're just going to join in at home. John, I'm going to get a little beat here, see if I can figure this out. Let's see. Kind of a little bit of a hip-hop kind of beat. Right? Maybe slow it down just a little bit. Okay. Now this is going to be your part. You'll figure it out coming along. Little Christmas rap. Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a baby born in Bethlehem, born in the stable right beneath the table when the wise men came to visit him. They brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh and said the boy would be a king. Meanwhile, there were shepherds abiding in the field. They were keeping a watch in their flock. When they looked toward the sky, the heads began to reel. When they saw what they saw, they got quite a shock. There was 1,000 angels in the sky, 1,000 angels singing hidey-hi, singing hidey-hidey, hidey-hi, singing hidey-hidey-ho. That's your part. Hidey-hidey, hidey-hi, singing hidey-hidey-ho. Well, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. If you don't believe it, well, we sing it again. On goodwill towards men. If you don't believe, we're gonna sing it again. Singing hidey, 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 hi. Singing hidey, hidey, ho. Well, listen up. While the shepherds went down into the town with light, the little stable was filled. The drummer boy was there, and so was Santa Claus. Everything was quiet and still. But just then the party started, 'cause didn't you know it was the very first Christmas day? Well, the drummer hit the drum, and the piper hit the pipe, and everybody began to swing and sway. They were jamming a jive to Jesus coming in time on the chorus. They looked up to the angels, said, sing hallelujah for us. And they said, hidey, 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 hi. Said, hidey, hidey, ho. They said, hidey, 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 hi. They said, hidey, hi. Peace on earth. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. If you don't believe, we're going to sing it again. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. If you don't believe, we're going to sing it again. Well, they gave each other presents. Santa got some too. Ever since that day, he's tried to give them away. I hope he gives some presents to you. So it's a fun time of year. It's a lot of fun to be thinking about Christmas, to be thinking about winter solstice when this moon is shining so bright and beautiful in such a cold and dark, long night as we're getting ready to have. And it's also a time to be thinking about the way in which light enters into our lives, especially in the dark. The old saying goes that the light is brightest in the dark, which is sometimes hard to understand and experience when we find ourselves, in fact, in the dark. And yet, when the light shines, you know what that transformative experience is, that redemptive feeling. And so we strive for that. We practice. We talk about a spiritual practice. We practice for that. And in the process, as Brad's going to sing here in one of my favorite Peter Mayer songs, in the process of doing that, once we are able to open up, I've always said the redemptive moments that are possible in all of our moments, that's where we find God, those redemptive possibilities. When we find that, the most surprising thing is we find ourselves in that process too. So years and years ago when I was a youth minister here, back in the early 80s, by the way, Jennifer Jolin was in the youth group, Brian and Jennifer down in Port Arthur. Hey, Brian and Jennifer. Brian reminded me after I said that wonderful thing, because, he does a lot of our promotional pieces and stuff in the tumblers, and he gave me big, bold letters. He said, there are no chemicals in those tumblers. It's double wall insulation. Okay, so want to make sure you know, don't ever take me seriously. Anything I say, just never take me serious. So Jennifer was in the youth group. I was a youth minister here, and there was a woman here that some of you all knew. Her name was Jane Giroux. She was a Miss America from this area, actually from Oklahoma City, but living in this area and working in the news media. And years after that, she wasn't on staff, but she was lay leadership here and involved in this church. And I was the youth minister. And one Sunday, we're actually sitting up in the altar area together, leading part of the service over there. And she was reading the scripture, I think. And so afterwards, I had asked her, we got to talking, I said, so you were Miss America way back in, 10, 15 years earlier. And she said, that's right. And I said, what about that? And she says, that wasn't me. And I thought, really? She said, no, that really wasn't me. She said, I did it, but I've learned a lot since then. And I've also learned that I think the thing that we're supposed to be about is being the most authentic people we can be, who we can be most authentically. And that's where I think we're supposed to be present. I've talked to you about that Howard Thurman quote, that what is the one thing God wants for us, but to find that deep joy and then to do more of that. Because when we're transformed, the world is transformed. And so I took that to heart. But then years and years later, something interesting happened. I was in Michigan, and I was working with a church and working with pastors in that area up in northern Michigan, mid-Michigan, around Flint and Saginaw. And I'd finished this conference on a Saturday afternoon, and it was about the second week of December, first week of December. It was in December, I remember, because it was pretty cold and kind of dry and barren outside. And so I left the church, and I was talking to the minister, and I said, how did it go? And he said, well, I think it worked pretty well. And I said, I didn't really notice anybody laughing. And he said, well, yeah, they were laughing, but they were just not laughing out loud, because that's the Midwest. There's a snare right there. Anyway, thank you. So I said, well, that's fine. I was feeling like I wanted to hear some more storytelling, and maybe is there some kind of a coffee house? He says, well, he said, you're talking about storytelling. I said, well, yeah, like I was doing. He said, oh, yeah, I noticed that. And he said, there is a library, but it's closed. And I said, well, no, I'm not looking at the library. I'm looking like more like a coffee house. He said, well, we have a Denny's. And I said, nah, I'm not really looking at a Denny's either. And I said, never mind. I said, what about Detroit? How long is it down to Detroit? It's a big city. Got to have something fun. He said, well, it's not down too far. You just go straight down the interstate. You'll find it. You run right into the center of town. So I said, okay. So he took me to get a rental car, and I got a rental car. I wasn't budgeting for this, so I got the cheapest thing they had, which I'd never had before. It was a 3-cylinder Geo Metro. I didn't know they could make a car with only 3 cylinders. I said, is it broken? And he said, no, it just doesn't go very fast. So we didn't rehearse this, so yeah. Anyway, so I get in the car, and I'm driving down, and like I said, it was in December, and I don't get more than about 5 miles out of town on my way heading down towards Pontiac and then down towards towards Detroit past that. A snowstorm comes through, just blows in, which I hear later on. I find out that's not atypical in Michigan. It just kind of blows out of nowhere, and it just was a sheet of white, and it just covered the road. Traffic came to a stop, and you all know that I take my ukulele with me everywhere, even in a Geo Metro. And so I think maybe hold off for now, and then yeah. So as I'm driving along and I come to a stop, I thought to myself, this would be a good time to learn some stuff. So I learned a couple of things on the ukulele, like. So I learned that, and I was having fun. And I kept going slower and slower, and I had to come to a stop. Everybody was stopped, and so I learned this one. Oh, the weather outside. Oh, the traffic outside is frightful, but my uke strings are so delightful. And since there's a cop up ahead, I'll play my uke with my eyes on the road. So I played that, and I played a couple of songs, and I thought to myself, this was a foolish, ridiculous adventure because I was stuck in the snow, and it was almost 8:30 at that point. So I pulled off, and I got across the bridge, and what did I see but a Denny's? So I pulled into the Denny's. And I sat there for a while eating, and one of the waitresses came over and said, so what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm headed down to Detroit, honestly, but it looks like it's too snowy. She said, where are you from? And I said, well, I'm from Texas. And she said, well, what are you doing all the way up here? And I said, well, I was doing something in Flint, but now I'm lost. And she said, well, I would say so. And she said, it's not that far. I mean, Detroit's just down another 30, 45 minutes, depending on the snow and traffic. And then told me when you get there, there's a city center right in the center of town. When you get to the city center, if you pull in the garage, that's where you'll find coffee houses, you'll find a club there, you'll find stores. I mean, it's a great place to go and eat and entertainment. So I said, great. My excitement was renewed. I got in my Geo Metro, threw my uke to the side, went straight down the highway. The snow was starting to let up, and it was beautiful. Just as my waitress had explained, I drove right into the center of the city. If you've been to Detroit, you know what happens. The freeway literally becomes a wide boulevard. And then it becomes a main street right down into town. And then it comes to a T, an intersection, at the center of town. And if you look right across in the night, you can see this big, beautiful glass building, City Center. It's huge and enormous. You can see the parking lot over to one side, on the other side of the boulevard. So I took a right, and then I got in my left 2 lanes so that I could take a left turn into the garage. And I was in the right left turn. So as the 2 lanes began to turn, I noticed the left lane going into the garage. I noticed the lane I was in going down a hill and into a tunnel, and the last thing I saw was, welcome to Windsor, Canada. Now, I don't know about you, but having never been to Michigan, I thought I was in the Twilight Zone, because how do you head south and end up in Canada north? But sure enough, you do. So that when I came out on the other side, this was in like 1999, it was pre-9/11. When I came out on the other side, there were the custom booths, and I pulled up, and the guy looked at me, and he said, do you know what are you doing here? And I said, I have no idea. And he said, well, where are you from? And I said, well, Texas originally. He said, you're from Texas? You got lost all the way up here? I told him, no, I was in Flint. I thought I'd come here. I was looking for some storytelling. Somebody said the City Center, and he said, oh, you're in the wrong place. This is nightclubs. This is where all the college-age students come across and come over here because the drinking age is younger. And I said, well, I don't know about that. That's not really why I was here. And he said, well, you can turn around and you can go back down into the tunnel, or you can go down the side during the Channel Road and take the bridge back over. It's a little more sightseeing. So I said, all right, at least I'll get a little sightseeing. I can call home, tell my wife that I got to see Canada. So I was going down the Channel Road, and it was probably close to 10. It was about 9:45. And as I got about 2 miles down the way, I looked to my left, and I saw this beautiful old stone building, glass windows all across it, and there were books on the shelves, and it looked to me like a bookstore. And since it was lit up, I thought to myself, well, I could pick up some books or pick up something and then take it back home, and it would be kind of not just a wasted trip. So I turned to the left quickly. I pull into that parking lot, and I walk into the stone building. Inside the building are a couple of hallways that go to different shops, it looks like. And the bookstore is to my left, and so I start knocking on the glass door because it's locked. But there's clearly a purse on the counter there next to the cashier. The cash register. So I think maybe the clerk is there, or the owner is there, so I keep knocking. But nobody's answering. Finally, somebody taps on my shoulder, and I turn around, and I see a woman smiling at me. She said, can I help you? And I said, well, I saw the bookstore was open, and she said, was the door locked? And I said, well, yes. And she said, then it's not open. And I said, well, I was trying to find just some books or some stories. I was actually looking for a coffee shop. And she said, wait a minute, you're looking for a story at a coffee shop? She said, you're here. You're right where you're supposed to be. I said, really? She said, yeah, come on. So she took me down the hallway into a coffee shop where people were sitting at small tables, nicely dressed, and listening to a couple of individuals who apparently were authors about to read some of their pieces from their books. She took me over and sat me down to a woman who was much older. She was probably in her 80s at the time, and I was in my 40s at the time. And she sat me down next to this older woman, and she whispered to me, she said, this is Mrs. Story. I said, excuse me? She said, this is Gertrude Story. You were looking for, this is Mrs. Story. And Gertrude Story looked at me and said, do I know you? And I said, no. And she started to whisper, asking me why I was there, and the gentleman cleared his throat who was about to speak. It was Alistair Cook, about to read an essay. And he opened up his book after looking at me and after everyone got quiet. And he said, I'm going to read to you a piece that I wrote not too long ago entitled, Whatever Happened to Jane Giraud? And before he could begin, I raised my hand and I said, I know. And he said, excuse me. And I said, well, this is just too crazy. I said, I'm not even from here. I'm from Texas, and I wander in here, and I know Jane Giraud, and I know what happened to her because she was a Miss America. But then I worked with her. I knew her. She became active in the media, and then she moved back to Oklahoma City, her first love, where she was born. And there she got involved in all sorts of charity work, and that was her real deep, true love. And after a minute, he looked at me, and he said, excuse me, but you are interrupting my piece. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, you go ahead. And he said, well, there's no point in reading this one. You already told everybody. So he turned and he read something else from his book. Mrs. Story looked over at me. She said, who are you? Afterward, when Mrs. Story got up, she told this wonderful little story about someone wandering around the countryside because it was a little piece she had written. She was from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, 1,000 miles away to come to Windsor. And then Alistair Cook from England to come to Windsor. And then I forget the third author who was there from Canada. But the three of them were there from disparate places reading stories. And here I find myself from Texas hearing my story. And after Gertrude finished the first piece, which the woman was wandering around looking for wisdom and found out it was in the very tree out in front of her house the whole time. It was right there where she'd always grown up and lived. she came out afterwards. We went out and got some coffee, espresso at a local little spot, and got some pie. And we all laughed, and we kind of visited for a little while. And then Gertrude gave me her book. She has 3 books, but the one that I love the most is called How to Saw Wood with Angels. But of course, it's not like literally taking an angel to saw wood. It's like, how do you experience the liminal and the sacred in the midst of the mundane? And then she signed it on the inside, and it said, to my fellow traveler, Tom, who has just discovered that his story is always around the next corner. When I got back the next day, I stayed overnight at a little hotel there, and then when I got back the next day, the sun was coming up. I made my way back across the bridge. It was early Sunday morning because that night I remembered that I was supposed to preach and had forgotten all about it. And I didn't even know the church, except that I knew where it was. And when I got there, I realized, oh, this is an AME church, an African Methodist Episcopal church. And I walked in, and of course the congregation was 99.9% African American. I was the 0.1% that wasn't. And I'd never spoken in such a context before, and I was completely overwhelmed and intimidated and had no idea what to do. And nothing I had really thought, prepared for what I was going to preach would have worked, and because I had prepared for Midwestern white people. I mean, it just wasn't going to work. And one of the members came up to me and said, you know what? Why don't you just speak from your heart? If you're true with us, we'll carry you the rest of the way. And that's exactly what happened. As I began to speak, they began to connect with me, and then they began to talk, and I began to connect with them. And before we knew it, we were sharing story together. Since then, I have learned that the most powerful thing about the Nativity story is that it reminds us the power of story itself to transform us. The power of vulnerability, of shared story, and of attentiveness. And when we are listening closely enough to others, what we begin to discover is our own story.
There could be a blue kazoo, a pair of ruby shoes, a silky new, a fetching red kimono, a Pakistani rug, an Elvis Presley mug, all the very best of Perry Como. There could be a handsome blonde, a Harry Potter wand, those little strips that help you quit snoring, an anti-aging cream, a healthy self-esteem, waiting there for you on Christmas morn. Then again, in light of life's uncertainties, you may not find a single one of these, but guarantee underneath that tree there'll be a brand new day begun. The ones who love you are turning up, and a great big shining sun, yeah, big old shining sun. You might like a better job, a diamond ring from Bob, a cabin place on Lake Okoboji. You might pray to be released from Middle Eastern peace, or a sort of life like Obi-Wan Kenobi. You could bring your list to Santa on your knees. All he's gonna say is we will see. But guarantee underneath that tree There'll be a brand new day begun. The ones that love you and the turning up and a great big shining sun. Yeah, a big old shining sun. If that's all you get for Christmas, in spite of all your wishes, you might hang your head and then go back to bed. Or you might discover it instead. When you wake and see the day, the earth, you read your name. You cut the gold ribbons all around it. You still might be surprised and even realize that you got everything you wanted. 'Cause when you see underneath that tree another brand new day begun, the ones that love you and a turning earth and a great big shining sun, a big old shining sun. Yeah, a big old shining sun. That giant fireball, the greatest ornament of all, hung in the sky Christmas morn. That's a good one.
I don't quite know where to begin. When I listen to you talk about all your hopes, I can't help but think how Christmas changes as we grow older. Time was when I was young, when Christmas Day seemed to me like a magic ring around the world. It bound together all my affections, enjoyments, hopes, and having everything and everyone around a Christmas fire was all I ever wanted. And then, you know, time comes when someone very dear, very beautiful, draws you to the hearth where they sit. And then Christmas is a time to dream of the things that are to be, all your aspirations so very real, even if they should amount to little or nothing. It is easy in these times, when we think back on the things that never were, to conclude that life is little better than a dream, and little worth the loves and strivings that we crowd into it. And yet, I see a boy before whom stretches a future far brighter than we ever looked on. And I see a girl with curls dancing around her face like that long ago first love, and another, and another, and another who remind me that Christmas is still a magic ring if it binds us all together. Therefore, as we grow older, may the circle of our Christmas memories expand. Welcome our old aspirations, which we may yet think impossible. We have not outlived you yet. Welcome new projects and new loves to their place by the hearth. Welcome what has been, what never was, and what we hope may be. For it is the season of immortal hope and the birthday of immortal mercy, and we will shut out nothing. Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us. God bless us, everyone.
All right. Would you stand for our final song, folks? Here we go. Words are on the screen. Let's do it. Love came down at Christmas. Love, lovely, love divine. Love was born at Christmas. Stars and angels gave the sign. Oh! Chorus. Love shall be our token. Love be yours and love be mine. Love from God to all of us. Love for thee and gift of sign. Now. Love came down. Love came down at Christmas. Love, lovely, love divine. Love was born at Christmas. Stars and angels gave the sign. Stars and angels gave the sign.
Well, it's so good to see you all here this morning. And before I close with the benediction, I want to remind you all, it's so good also to have had Hannah Kirby here. So good to have you with us again. And we want to see you again. And Doxy, we've been missing you. It's always good to see you. Good to have you with us as well. Thank you, Jakey, as well for that. That was beautiful. So here's what I want you to do on your way out before I read this. I'm going to read a Celtic blessing. But before I do, on your way out, there's a couple of baskets back there. You'll see them. There's just some cards. Grab one of those cards. It's just something to think about for Christmas, for the season. Just a wish and a wishful thought perhaps for you. You can reflect on it. Some fun to think about. And then there's only 3 different kinds. So just grab a card and walk away. Don't bother to look at it. Just grab it and walk away. So, and then we won't see you next week unless you come to one of the main traditional services for Christmas Eve. We will see you on we'll see you in 2022. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, we'll see you in 2022. Amazing. We'll see you on the 2nd of January back in here, and we look forward to that. Meanwhile, I hope you have a really blessed holiday and a beautiful, beautiful Christmas. Here's your benediction. God grant you lightness in your step, a smile on every face you meet, loved ones gathered at your hearth and at your door, good friends to greet. A holy hymn upon your lips, a window candle burning bright, and may the good love of life bless your heart and come to dwell there always on Christmas night and beyond. Amen.